Hey guys and gals, Coach Ryan here with Endurance Sports University. Thanks for stopping by to check out the Triathlon Study Hall call. This was recorded on Tuesday, July 14th. So check it out and I hope you enjoy it. All right, take care. Hey everybody, welcome to the Endurance Sports University Triathlon Study Hall. This is episode number 2, Tuesday, July 14th. All right, let's go ahead and get into this, guys. I got some good stuff today. I'm pretty excited. All right, so for those of you that don't know me, Ryan Reel, USAT Level 2 coach, youth and junior coach, master's degree in exercise physiology and biomechanics, have a second master's in organic and biological chemistry, was a USA Triathlon high performance team head coach and team director from 2011 to 2015, formerly an elite coach over at Training Bible. That's Joe Friel's group, and then ultimately I am the founder and president and chief success facilitator of Endurance Sports University. So, all right, what is Endurance Sports University? Pretty simple, international leader in triathlon education and coaching resources and services for athletes, self-coached athletes, and for coaches. So we have something for everybody depending on what it is you want to achieve. It's all about the athlete, it's all about the coach, and overcoming adversity and achieving your guys' goals. So that's ultimately what we're here for. I want to tell you real quick before we get rolling about the membership program, or MPro. This is the newest program that we've engineered here at Endurance Sports University. It's specifically engineered for self-coached athletes and athletes on a budget. So basically the normal rate, $49.95 a month. It gets you the training program, pre-written training plan of your choice. Very simple, very straightforward. Loaded up every month. Gets you these group coaching calls. So once a week we have the Triathlon Study Hall or the group coaching call. Right now, this call is open to anybody. Once we get into August, maybe a little bit later, these calls are just going to be strictly reserved for members of Endurance Sports University, whether it's the membership program or any of the higher levels of coaching. So it's a pretty outstanding program. It includes all of the following. So it's got the training plan of your choice, like I just said, the Triathlon Study Hall. It's got a private Facebook group with weekly accountability, weekly coaching tips and motivation. Big thing is, gets you access to all the private articles, videos, and MP3s. All of these Triathlon Study Halls are archived and available to ESU members. Comes with a Training Peaks account, sponsors, discounts, a lot of very exclusive discounts and promotions and swag that's going to get thrown your guys' way. So that's the gist of it. Pretty solid program. Definitely something to take a look at if you are a self-coached athlete or an athlete on a budget. So, all right, guys. Basics of it: 30-day notice, monthly commitment, pretty straightforward, $49.99 a month. Ultimately, we are running a promo that will go through Sunday, I'm going to say the 26th. Let me double check that real quick. Yep, Sunday the 26th, at the end of the day is when it ends. $39.99 instead of $49.99. The discount code ESU-grand-opening, all caps. And that is actually the 26th, not the 19th. So if you want more information, endurancesportsuniversity.com/membership program. So, all right, the agenda for today. Short presentation, we're going to talk about training stress and then questions and answers. So let's get into it. All right, so training stress, what is it, right? So what does science have to say? You apply a training stress on a system, so cardiovascular system, pulmonary system, whatever it may be, or on a tissue, such as the muscles, that's greater than what it's used to. It's going to challenge homeostasis, the normal body conditions, in order to have the physiological adaptations take place that we're looking for with training and racing. All right, so the 3 key variables that we have to take into account when we're looking at training stress and how to apply it, how to quantify it, etc. with athletes, we're looking at volume, intensity, and frequency. We have to account for those 3 variables of training. All training is ultimately going to come back to those 3 variables. So how do we measure training stress? With modern technology such as a power meter on the bike, a GPS device with the swim and the run, super simple. They record the metrics that we need in order to put it into some aftermarket software and start just popping out training stress scores. We have some computer programs that will do that for us. You'll see why in a minute. That's a good thing. Ultimately, training stress score, or TSS, is the metrics within Training Peaks or WKO Plus that we'll use. It's a metric that is going to measure the training stress a given session applies to an athlete, and it's based on the interplay of volume and intensity. So looking more closely, we have a cycling TSS and a running TSS. Those are the ones we're going to be primarily concerned about today. If we look at the equation, training stress score, TSS, seconds is the time of the session or race in seconds, NP, normalized power, so that's the power output that you would have generated if you had pedaled smoothly the entire time. So it removes the highs, removes the lows. If you're coasting down a hill for 6 minutes, you're going to pretty much have zero power output. So it's accounting for that. It's taking out the highs and taking out the lows. IF, or intensity factor, that's your normalized power divided by your FTP. FTP, which you see on the bottom, functional threshold power. So it's the power output at lactate threshold. All right. So if we take a look, the red variables are the four that we are basically going to be using, right? So training stress score being the goal, we need to know the time, the normalized power, and the intensity factor. FTP is going to be a constant. 3,600, the number of seconds in an hour, is a constant. We multiply it by 100 to get to a nice round number that we can actually use. All right, so pretty straightforward. Short, simple equation, TSS is equal to intensity factor squared times the bike split in hours. So if we're going to ride 6 hours, it's 6.0. If we're going to ride 6.5, it's 6.5, etc. Multiply that by 100, it's going to get you the training stress score. All right, so that's an equation you're going to want to remember. All right, so now running training stress score. All right, we put a little R in front of the TSS. We know we're talking about running. Again, seconds is time of the session. NGP, so normalized graded pace. This is the running metric. It's the pace that's adjusted for variations in terrain and elevation. All right, so if we're running on a track versus running in our neighborhood versus running out on some trails, the terrain is going to change, the elevation is going to change, and it accounts for that. All right, see, it's the running equivalent of normalized power, but in this case with running, it's normalized graded pace instead of normalized power with cycling. All right, so intensity factor, same thing, except NGP divided by FTP, and then ultimately FTP, functional threshold pace, not power while we're running. So functional threshold pace, it's the pace that you're putting out basically at lactate threshold. So that's the key metrics. Again, we have the same shortcut equation for TSS right there. All right, so why do we care about this, right? Why am I talking with you guys about this today? It's simple. If you know what you want to do on race day, you can use the metric training stress score, and it's going to help you do all the following. It's going to help you develop a race plan. It's going to test that race plan. It's going to help you make the adjustments as necessary. It's going to increase the specificity of your training. Ultimately, it's going to help you achieve your goals. And if that doesn't sound like a good idea or a good reason to use power and technology, then I don't know what else to do for you at this point. All right, so when we're looking at TSS scores, what does this mean to us, right? So how do we use this for coming up with a race plan and for verifying that it'll work? We have ranges, acceptable ranges with training stress scores that are going to set up a triathlete with the ability to run as well as they can off the bike, right? So ultimately, we have these three right here. So for an Ironman, we want our TSS to be somewhere between 260 and 290. Again, this is only on the bike. For 70.3, we want to be between 160 and 190, and Olympic distance somewhere between 90 and 100. That's what we're aiming at. All right. So with that, if I take a look at this equation, right, I know what my training stress score is going to be. I know what time I want to ride 112 miles in. Right. So now all that's left over, I need to know what normalized power and what intensity factor is going to do that. So if I go back to the TSS equation that was intensity factor squared times the number of hours as a decimal and multiply that by 100, I know that I get my training stress score, right? And I know with that, if I know I want my TSS to be 260, and I know that I want to ride the 112 miles in 6 hours, I now know two of the three variables in that short TSS equation, right? So that becomes a very powerful thing. You can use that to determine what intensity factor and what normalized power do I need to be riding at. You're ultimately going to solve for intensity factor with a short equation, right? Because you know the time and you know the TSS that you're aiming at. That's going to tell you, here's my intensity factor, which is ultimately a percentage of FTP. So you do some simple math with, remember, intensity factor is equal to normalized power divided by FTP, right? So you do some math. Now it tells you what normalized power to ride at, right? There's a race plan. There's a race plan, and this stuff works. There's an athlete that I'm working with down in Miami. He's used this for two 70.3 races. The first one was a 9-minute PR. The second one was a 15-minute PR. Now we're getting loaded up for the full Ironman at Chattanooga. Right? So this stuff works. Can I do this stuff for you? Yes, absolutely. It's somewhat proprietary to what we do here, so I don't really share all of the other resources that we have available to work with our athletes, but this is definitely something that we have the ability to help you with, whether you want to become, a fully coached athlete, a membership program, or you just want to simply hire us for a consultation to develop the race plan. It's totally up to you guys. So this is the valuable part of training stress score and TSS as a metric and what it ultimately does for us. So at this point, I'm going to open it up to questions. Questions on anything swim, bike, run, triathlon related. You type it into the box, and what I'm going to do is probably bring you on, have you ask the question. If you don't have a mic, I'm just going to go ahead and read it. So, all right, guys, what are your questions? Okay. So Matt has a great question. Matt, do you have a microphone? I'm going to bring you onto the call, Matt, and then just have you ask the question, and we will have a discussion about it. So let me bring Matt on. Matt does not appear to have a microphone. All right, Matt, you don't get to come on. So I'll go ahead and read the question and answer it. All right, so Matt asks, if I have a high-intensity interval session or workout, is there a minimum TSS to consider the workout effective? All right, so that's an absolutely great question. Matt's getting introduced to high-intensity interval training. I don't think he's been brutalized quite like some of the others of you on here have been with the HIIT sessions, but he's getting there, and he's going to get those dumped on him pretty hard. So Matt, basically, yes and no is the answer, right? So the training stress score for a longer and or more intense session is ultimately going to be higher, right? Because in the numerator of the training stress score equation, we had time and we had intensity factor, right? And ultimately the power output. So as we start to increase those, we're going to ultimately see a higher training stress score for that session. But on the flip side of that, right? So if we're doing something like 8 times 2 minutes at zone 5, that 2-minute period, you're going to have tremendously high normalized power and a very high intensity factor, right? But the time, if it's let's say an hour-long session, it's only accounting for 16 minutes of the 60, right? So 16 of the minutes is incredibly high. If we have a 60-second recovery that's really easy after each one, now we have 8 more minutes that's incredibly low, right? With the normalized power and the intensity factor. So I'm not overly concerned about the training stress score that high intensity interval sessions generate. I'm ultimately more concerned about the power output that you're generating for those shorter intervals. Now, as we start getting to longer intervals, we get into maybe some zone 4 type intervals where we can be, anywhere from 4 to 20 or 30 minutes. That's where we're going to really start to see a higher training stress score for intervals, as it may be. But ultimately, the biggest thing that I'm wanting to see, as it pertains to you with the training stress score, is the race specific runs or brick workouts or bikes that we do, right? So ultimately, the brick workouts on Saturday, I'm wanting to see a training stress score somewhere between 90 and 100 for you on the bike, right? Because ultimately, that's what we're gonna use to judge, develop a race plan and judge your ability to execute it. Hey guys, Coach Ryan again. Hey, so that's a 14-minute sample of what ultimately was about a 48-minute call. So there's about 30 minutes worth of additional question and answers that were added in there, some really outstanding stuff. With all these calls, they're archived within the Endurance Sports University membership site. And ultimately, whether you're a self-coached athlete, athlete on a budget, or an athlete with a full-time coach, whether it's with us or with somebody else, the Triathlon Study Hall is available as part of the membership program, or the M-Pro that we have. So regardless of the level of service you get with us, it ultimately is included, or if it's something that you're looking for a relatively inexpensive add-on each month and the opportunity to get your hands on some really outstanding information and get some questions answered, then I'd highly recommend checking this out. So, all right, guys, I hope to talk to you again soon. Take care.